Today we're talking about something that's been on my mind. You see, it feels like the United States is imploding from within across multiple sectors, but in truth, it's not just from within. We're seeing sort of a run on the United States from certain nations and business interests worldwide. Remember the run on the banks after the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank? Well, it seems like many nations are thinking about or actually proceeding with transferring their allegiance, assets, and commitments from the quote Bank of the US to the quote Bank of China or elsewhere. And this isn't just a thought or a theory. High-level individuals, officials, business people who have tons of real-world experience and money think that the US might be on the verge of collapse. I've heard many say that they are actively looking elsewhere. Those with wealth have been getting their second passport, have been buying homes overseas. They are ready to go. The US still has that top spot. There's no question about that. They've got the largest total reserves, US dollars, when you look at it on a global scale. But things are changing. Let me explain this to you. We've got issues like the current US administration seemingly losing control of the border, the decaying big cities. My goodness, I've seen so much of that. And a potential recession on the horizon, or one that's already going on, depending on who you ask. We're also seeing the destruction of the fossil fuel industry while pushing trillions into green energy alternatives. Not to mention the tensions in Ukraine that could trigger a nuclear strike. Add to that the weakening dollar and the overall ideological shift in the country. It's no wonder why other nations are starting to look elsewhere for partnerships and stability. Remember, 1945, you wanted to be partnered with the United States, trust me. You wanted to be on their good side. You wanted to be buddies, you wanted to be friends. Because they had the strength. Why? All the gold from the spoils of war coming towards them. They called all the shots. They set up the IMF. They set up all these new institutions. Right after that, they happen to be the leaders of that. They are the ones deciding everything within it, essentially becoming an empire beyond anything we've seen before. Power, strength, money, wealth, all basically instantly after World War II. But things have changed since then. And a lot of these countries are saying, we just can't. We've got the sanctions on us. We've got all these things. And so as a result of this, there's a new world order that's emerging. You've heard this before. I've got some more information I want to share with you. Let's talk about that. For example, French President Macron, you've seen that before, the video before this when I talked about it. He traveled to Beijing to meet with China's president, and he brought along the president of the European Commission. So all these high-level people are meeting together, and what did they talk about? Well, his message was clear that Europeans shouldn't just follow America and get caught up in crises that aren't theirs. The Mexican president has been openly criticizing the US leadership, calling it an oligarchy and not a real democracy. So these are just some examples, and of course we have that of the Middle East. Can't forget about Saudi Arabia, which is inching closer to joining a China-led Asian security and economic bloc, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO. One Saudi analyst even said, quote, the traditional monogamous relationship with the US is now over and we have gone into a more open relationship, strong with the US, but equally strong with China, India, the UK, France, and others. That is massive. They want to join the BRICS. They want to utilize other currencies to do trade. But they want to stay friendly with the United States. They're not saying we don't want to do business anymore, but we're not monogamous anymore. You see that? That's a quote. Brazil, China's most important trading partner in South America, has announced a new agreement to conduct bilateral commerce in the respective currencies instead of the US dollar. So why in the world Would a country like Brazil want to deal with US dollar if it's buying from China? It really doesn't make sense. Their currencies are much weaker. So why buy the strong dollar only to get what you want at the end of the day, which is a commodity, right? They don't want to do this. It's too expensive for them. And so that's what's happening. So what's the takeaway here? Well, it seems that the confidence in the United States is waning, and a growing number of political and business leaders worldwide believe the country is in decline. Will this lead to a run on the Bank of the United States, with assets being transferred to China or maybe other BRICS nations? Well, of course, only time will tell, but the signs are there for those who care to pay attention. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I've talked about this before. What can you do as an individual? What are you doing? A lot of people, they say, well, I'm just going to buy Tesla stock because of, Elon Musk said this and robo-taxis that. But what are you actively doing to ensure that where you are invested, where your money is, your portfolio might be a tiny one or your portfolio might be larger, but what are you doing about it? How are you spreading your wealth? Well, you have to geographically diversify. This is very important. If you own real estate and it's in one place, all you ever invested in was Florida real estate, well, Florida's doing well. Florida's doing great. Jobs are moving in. Rents are going up. Prices of the homes are going up. Great. But what happens 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road? Things change. Okay, you might have a problem there as well. Political problems, natural disasters. One hurricane comes in, swipes out half the state. Then what do? Is your insurance going to cover that? Well, what about the rents? What about all the different things can happen? Okay, and I'm just making an example of it. So that's why we need geographical diversification. And I talk about this all the time. Currency diversification. Okay, very important stuff. When you have an online business, for instance, you could be potentially selling your products and services to people all over the world. And by doing this, you could be your product, you're doing one thing, but because it's sold to multiple places, you are now diversifying in economies. Maybe you're selling to Germany, you got products selling online, you're selling into Germany, you're also selling into Australia and maybe the United States. You got 3 different currencies, you got 3 different economies. So suddenly you are more diversified than most people who would say, I'm just going to buy Tesla stock. Well, I mean, that's not diversification. You might do well and you might be able to be okay, but that's not the way that we prepare in these scenarios. I've seen a lot of the other information out there that's being shared with you, and it's so narrow. It's so, it's like blind horse that's got the blinders on. We need to understand this. I'm going to continue to focus on it, no matter if there's just a handful of people listening anymore. That's okay, because I know the information that I'm sharing is the ultimate truth. And I thank you for being here, and I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.